This is Penn Woods interviewing for the Oklahoma Living Legends. I'm visiting on April the 24th, 1971, with winners of the Western Heritage Awards. We have here winners of the magazine awards for the 1971 Western Heritage Program. I have the writer and you are an assistant editor. The associate editor of the magazine. The writer is Mr. James. Let me get the correct pronunciation. Is it Servin? And the associate editor is Mr. Joseph Stacy. And incidentally, Arizona Highways is itself a magazine which received honors last year as a magazine for its long-time contribution to the heritage of the West. To begin with, I think I will start with the editor of the magazine and have him, if he would, tell about what the article was and comment a little on what attracted the magazine to the article or the subject. I don't know whether this was a contributed article or an assigned article. This would be interesting to find out from you. Could you tell what the article was and a little about it?
Yes, the whole chain of events started with Mr. Servin's submission of the article. The article was Cattle, Guns, and Cowboys. And Jim had done a story for us the year before on ancient guns in Arizona's history. And so he thought it'd be a nice follow-up with having the tie-in between the guns of the cowboy and so on. And it was so beautifully done and written that it gave us the idea to go ahead and do an entire issue working the cowboy theme around it. And because of the fact that cowboy photographs are at best not the most attractive things graphically, we decided that we'd go to the fine art medium for reproduction. So it gave us a good excuse to contact some of the noted artists in the field, and we worked quite closely with Dean Crakel and the people at the Cowboy Hall of Fame, who were having a Cowboy Artists of America show in June of that year. And so it just worked out beautifully. We had a combination of things of that year's show plus winners of the year before, and some of the most noteworthy examples of cowboy art from various private collections and galleries and museums around the country, with the idea of showing different phases of the workaday life of the cowboy. It wasn't just a case of showing something with a cowboy and a horse on a hillside or a corral scene. It had to show a definite phase of the workaday life of the cowboy. The magazine was exceptionally well received, and it sort of started a new wave of art features in our magazine, which we've had since then. Although it's predominantly a photographic magazine, we find that people appreciate these documentaries, especially art documentaries of the Western scene, so we're going to keep doing more of it, and we hope that in another year or two we can follow this other one up with another super cowboy issue.
Mr. Servin, I think to begin with, I'd like to ask you about your personal background, where you were born and what your background was that gave you an interest in this subject.
Well, I was born in the East and grew up in the publishing field, I presume you could say. I was editor of Building Age magazine, and however, my interest was always in horses. We had horses always where I lived, and as a matter of fact, at the age of 12, I took part in a little Wild West show that we had back east, and I began to play polo, and finally came to Arizona and bought a cattle ranch. So that this has been in my blood for a long time, and the combination of my love for the West and for horses and those people who are associated with them, and my background of writing, why it was natural to write this story.
Why don't you give us the gist of the story?
Well, the story recites pretty much the trail of the cattle from Texas, how the cattle were introduced into the West, and the new industry, the cattle industry, was really founded. And it interrelates the dependence of the early cattlemen on the gun and the many things that the gun was used for, not just to shoot some game or to keep off the Indians, but it was used to turn cattle, it was used to light a fire, it was used to signal others. And in many ways, the gun was an instrument that was inseparable from that particular period.
You have written a number of articles, haven't you, for Arizona Highways?
Yes, I've written some articles for Arizona Highways and some books, and of course many articles on guns for various national publications.
What are the books that you've written?
Well, one is the history of the National Rifle Association. Another is the history of the Colt firearms, which is now in its 6th printing, incidentally. And another book has to do with the collecting of guns, which gives the technique of collecting antique weapons and so forth.
Have you seen the Davis place?
Yes, I know Mr. Davis. As a matter of fact, he has some of my guns in his collection. Yes.
They're building for that, half-built a building for that, I guess, you know.
Yes, I do. He was quite a fellow to deal with. He was a pretty sharp customer to deal with, but I enjoyed my visits with him.
Sort of slowed down now.
Oh yes, he's pretty well up in years now, like some of us are getting.
Thinking in terms of have any of your other articles with the Arizona Highways dealt with the gun?
Well, as Mr. Stacy has mentioned, I did one article which had to do with the important guns in Arizona's past, and that recited from the very earliest. As a matter of fact, the sound of gunfire, I believe, was heard first in New Mexico and Arizona in the whole United States. It was back in the 1500s when the Spanish came up there, and they had their arquebus, their matchlock guns, and that was even before Jamestown or the Plymouth Rock.
Have you had any Oklahoma experience? Have you spent any time here or had any of your experience here?
Well, one of my very best friends, Phil Phillips of Bartlesville, is a great gun collector, and he and I have been close friends, and I have visited with him quite a good deal.
Do you have any other close acquaintances in Oklahoma that you can think of that you may want to comment on?
Well, of course, Mr. Davis was one, and but I can't think of anyone that I could claim as really a close friend.
Arizona Highways has long been probably the pioneer of the state papers, and certainly has been among the greatest of the magazines, featuring parts of Americana, I guess, if many might say the greatest in the country that features a specific area. Would you tell me what you feel has been really the secret of the success of the Arizona Highways? It certainly has had that success.
Well, there's really it's no secret. The story of Arizona Highways magazine reflects the thinking, the policies, and the dedication of one man, Raymond Carlson, who was has been editor of Arizona Highways for 33 years. When he first took the magazine over back in 1938, the magazine was nothing more than a road bulletin. And in addition to having road reports and conditions of the highways and bids, it also had quite a bit of advertising by people who sold equipment and oil and supplies to the highway department. It got to be sort of a political instrument. So the first thing he did, of course, with the approval of the legislature, state legislature, because we are a branch of the state setup. We are an organ of the Arizona State Highway Department. And the first thing he did was got them to approve his idea of doing away with all advertising and just making a magazine slanted to attract people to Arizona. And to do this by showing the general editorial policy became scenic attractions and people, places, and events dealing with the economic, cultural, or historical development of the state. And It started off in that area, and due to the quality of the reproduction, black and white and color, which we were getting at the time, the magazine became a showcase for artists, photographers, and writers who have certainly blessed us with and endowed us with their work, for which they get paid probably the lowest prices paid in the field, and we in turn get the highest quality work. So, and this is going on. This has been the policy of the magazine for the past 20 years, and it's such a successful formula that no one has any dreams ever of changing it. We're going to go along with it as long as it works that way. But if any one thing, any one factor is responsible for the success, the format of Arizona Highways magazine, it can be added up into the thinking of Raymond Carlson, the editor of the magazine.
Raymond Carlson, of course, as you know, was here last year to receive a special award for Arizona Highways, which we hope you have displayed.
And due to a long, prolonged illness, he was not unable to attend this year. He barely made it last year, and we're certainly going to miss him, and he's going to miss being here because he enjoyed it very much last year.
We certainly thank you a lot and appreciate visiting with the winners of the magazine division, both the associate editor, Mr. Stacy, and the writer, Mr. Servin, of the outstanding magazine article of the year in the Western Heritage area. Certainly, thank you.